Welcome to this edition of Look Up and Live, a digital media ministries presentation of the Church of God of the Union Assembly in Dalton, Georgia. On behalf of the pastors and membership here in Dalton, thank you for sharing a portion of your day with us. Be sure and watch all of our services on Dalton Services at YouTube. Now let's join the service already in progress.
We want you to just relax and enjoy yourself. I want this to truly be a study. How many did not get a copy? Is there somebody you can sit close to for now? How many got 3 copies? Brother Richard, we know we got to make more next time. We will. Yeah, that's a good problem to have. We just, I thought I'd made plenty of them. I had a stack about that big, and I thought, well, this ought to work. But we'll get you a copy. And tonight, take notes. If you have a pen, piece of paper, and you don't have this, take notes so when you get it, you can refer back to what it is that you're looking for. Anybody brought their iPad with them that did not get a copy? That did not get a copy? Okay, I was going to say this sister's got a copy on her iPad. She could actually email it to you tonight, and you could look at it there. We'll try to put the words up on the screen for you. I'm so excited. I talked to text Brother Ole today, and I said I'm nervous and excited. It's a different format than anything I've ever participated in, so I'm very excited about the opportunity to teach you something that I think is probably one of the most important things to know about the Bible. Because if you don't know what this is about, you can't truly understand everything that the Bible talks about. And as we go through these sermons and these lessons, you will understand why that I am saying that tonight. Even tonight, there will be some things that maybe if you didn't know, you will and understand why we feel this way. Most everybody in the world today will teach you that Jesus Christ or preach that Jesus Christ resurrected. Thank you, sister. I'm proud you come in. I'll tell you the first place is St. John, the 11th chapter and the 25th verse. Most everybody that preaches today, at least that claims Christianity, will tell you that Jesus Christ resurrected. Not everybody will tell you that someone else resurrected with him. Most people believe in a resurrection or at least that Jesus rose from the dead, because they know that Jesus is sitting at the right hand of the Father. Well, if you'll go to John, the 11th chapter, the first thing I want to say is before the night's over with, I want you to truly understand what a resurrection is. I had a lady to tell me that the rapture was the resurrection. I want you to understand what the resurrection is, what it takes to be a resurrection. I want you to understand when it happened, when it's going to happen. When I read a book, which is very seldom unless it's this one, I will generally read the first part of it, jump all the way to the end, and read the last part so that when I'm reading the middle, I can understand why this happened at the end. That's kind of the way I cheat. I've done that in school. And I usually had my homework done before I ever left school, because I'd always go back to the back and I'd see the answer and then I'd come back and write it down. I don't know if I was cheating or if I was smart. Y'all tell me. Smart? I figured Brother Dale say I was cheating. But I want you to understand what a resurrection is. This is John the 11th chapter and the 25th verse, and this is Jesus when he was talking to Martha. You see, Lazarus had died. Lazarus had died. And when Jesus came to where he was at, they were displeased with him because he didn't come before he died. But what I want you to understand is when Martha come to Jesus, said, if thou hadst been here, my brother would not have died. Jesus said, your brother will live again. Notice what Martha said. I know he will live again at the last day. Pull up the 24th verse. This is John 11 and 24. Martha said unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Now here's what I want you to think about. This is Jesus Christ alive. Okay? He's alive at this point. Somebody had been preaching that there was going to be a resurrection. If not, then how did Martha know that? So somebody had been teaching that there was going to be a resurrection. All right? Not only that there was going to be a resurrection, evidently they had taught that there was going to be one at the end, at the last day. Because she knew that Lazarus would rise again at the last day. Well, Jesus wanted her to understand what the resurrection was. All right? That's where we're taking up our text here. 25th verse, Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection. I am the resurrection. Now, it's important to remember that Jesus said he was the resurrection. Because when you go talking about the resurrection, and I will go ahead a little bit and come back to this. When you're talking about the resurrection, if you tell someone that the resurrection has passed, and they've been listening all their life that there's going to be a resurrection. You following me? Martha had heard there was going to be a resurrection. If you tell someone the resurrection has passed and they believe you, you could overthrow their faith. They've lived all their life for what's going to come, the resurrection. Jesus said, I am the resurrection. Well, if you say the resurrection has passed, then you say Jesus has passed. I'm kind of going a little bit down the road to come back and show you why that it's important to understand that there is more to the resurrection than just at the end of the day or at the end of life. If you say the resurrection has passed, then you're saying Jesus has passed. If Jesus passed, then we have no hope. There's no way we could feel like we have salvation. The first resurrection, Jesus said, I am the resurrection. But Jesus had to resurrect. Therefore, it was the first resurrection. All right. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. If you would go to Acts, the 4th chapter, and the 1st and the 2nd verse. Jesus is the resurrection. Without Jesus Christ, we can't have a resurrection. The resurrection, when Jesus was raised from the dead, and I will show you by the help of the Lord that was when he was glorified. I'm going to show you by the help of the Lord that being glorified means to be resurrected. That's very, very important. Okay? Being glorified is being resurrected. The word glorify has sort of two meanings. Jesus said, I have glorified thee on the earth, talking to his Father. Well, that didn't mean he raised God up from the dead. That just simply meant he lifted him up in praise. But the word glorified also means to be lifted up and resurrected. And I will show you that. Jesus said, I am the resurrection. Acts 4, 1 and 2. And as they spake unto the people, the priest and the captain of the temple, this is John and Peter and John that was doing this. As they spake unto the people, the priest and the captain of the temple and the Sadducees came upon them, being grieved that they taught the people and preached through Jesus the resurrection from the dead. The resurrection came, as you can see, through Jesus. That's what these men was preaching. Peter, this is right after the day of Pentecost. All right? This is right after the Holy Ghost had come back. What did Jesus tell us? He said, it's expedient for you that I go away. For I go away, I'll pray the Father, and he'll send you another comforter. We all know that the Holy Ghost came on the day of Pentecost after Jesus had resurrected. Right? Well, these people, Peter was preaching to them, and he preached through Jesus Christ the resurrection from the dead. What was Peter telling them? That for people to be resurrected, they have to come through Christ Jesus. The only way you can be resurrected is through Christ Jesus at that point. Now, follow me. In that first resurrection, that could not be any of us. That's where a lot of people are mistaken. And this is where we say that if you don't understand the first resurrection, then you're not going to be able to understand the Bible. There's a lot of people in the world today that claim they are going to be in the first resurrection. I will, by the help of the Lord, show you that that's not possible, that it has already happened. I will show you who was in the first resurrection and how for you to prove who it was that was in the first resurrection. I want you to understand and be able, if someone were to say to you, I'm going to be in the first resurrection, I want you to be able to ask them what tribe they're from. You'll get that in a minute, okay? They were grieved that they taught the people and preached through Jesus the resurrection. The first resurrection came by Jesus Christ. The last resurrection will come by Jesus Christ. When Jesus came the first time, it brought about the first resurrection. When he comes the next time, it will bring about the last resurrection. All right, let's show what the first resurrection is and who it was. I want you to go to Isaiah, the 26th chapter and the 19th verse. You know, a lot of us have heard these things all our life. But the more I have studied on this in the last couple of weeks, ever since I've decided to do this, the more I am convinced of this doctrine. The more I study on it, the more I am convinced of it. I'm just so happy to know that God revealed this to somebody, that we could have this opportunity to learn this. Isaiah, the 26th chapter, in the 19th verse. Now, mind you, Biz, we're not having church. Do y'all mind if I take this off? It's not a 3-button, Brother Dale. I want you to know that this is a prophet Isaiah. This is his writing, the prophet Isaiah, his writing. All right? Thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. Awake and sing, you that dwell in dust, for thy dew is as the dew of herb, and the earth shall cast out the dead. There is so much in that one verse right there for us to break down and for you to understand. First thing I want to do is I want to go to 1 Peter, the first chapter, in the 11th verse. And I want to show you who this truly was that's speaking here. Although it's in Isaiah's writing, it's Jesus that's doing the talking. And I want to show you why I say that. This is 1 Peter 1 and verse 11. Searching what manner of time the Spirit of Christ which was in them. Remember I told you that was Isaiah the prophet? The Spirit of Christ was speaking before Jesus Christ was ever here, was speaking through and prophesying that this resurrection was going to happen. Searching what manner of time the Spirit of Christ which was in the prophets, did signify when it testified beforehand the sufferings of Christ and the glory that should follow. The sufferings of Christ was his death, and the glory was the resurrection. Christ, his Spirit, prophesied through Isaiah. That's what Isaiah was saying when he said, thy dead men. That was the Spirit of Christ. He was talking to God. Thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. Thy dead men shall live. Well, for them to need to live, they had to be dead. All right? Thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body, with Jesus' dead body, shall they arise. For them to arise, they had to come out of the grave. Now, as I said, Jesus Christ, everybody out there will preach that Jesus Christ resurrected, but they won't say anybody resurrected with him. This prophecy says that somebody got up with him. Thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. awake and sing. Remember that, because that's going to be important to you down the road. These people were told that they would sing. It was prophesied for them to sing. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in dust. They were in dust. They were dead. The Bible teaches us that since man came death, by man came death, by man came also the resurrection of the dead. These people had to die. They had to be in dust, okay? Thy dead men shall live. Together with my dead body shall they arise. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in dust. For thy dew is as the dew of herb, and the earth shall cast out the dead. That's Jesus Christ speaking through the prophet, foretelling of a day. A day. I want you to also notice that it said thy dead men. It said men, all right? These people that rose with Jesus Christ were all men. Every one of them was men. Let's go to Hosea, the 6th chapter, and the 2nd verse. This is some more prophecy. This is another prophet speaking of a day that was coming. And I'm trying to teach this in a manner that everybody can understand it. I don't want to go too fast, okay? I want to stay calm and try to get through this. I only got 9 pages. I think I can make it by 12. You all right with that? Yeah, good. Yeah. Amen. Now, if I don't get through with it, we'll work it in somewhere. This is Hosea. This is another prophet, okay? After 2 days will he revive us. In the 3rd day, he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight. This is prophecy by Hosea. After 2 days will he revive us. In the 3rd day, he will raise us up. There's a lot of questions that surround Hosea. Who he was, what his life was, what his lineage was. Ancestors say that he was from the tribe of Issachar. I don't have anything in the Bible to prove that. But he was a prophet. The things that Hosea spoke about in the whole book of Hosea was talking about the redemption of Israel. You read the whole book of Hosea, it's speaking about the redemption of Israel and how that God would receive them after their falter. When God told Hosea to do the things that he done, it was all for an example. You got to remember now, Jeremiah said like this. God told Jeremiah, said, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. I sanctified thee a prophet unto the nations. These prophets that God had back in those days, God sanctified them before they were ever born. Before they were ever born, God sanctified these men. All right? This is a man that God had sanctified, speaking and saying, after 2 days will he revive us. Why is that so important? I had a man tell me that this Hosea 6:2 was only speaking about the reviving of kings in a natural form. Now, this was a man that preached what we believe for years. And after he left the church, his mind got blinded. You got to remember, the Bible is spiritually written. It must be spiritually discerned. These things that were written in the scriptures, the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms, the things that was written in there, not everything is plain for people to see. For example, Isaiah said, thy dead men shall live. That was the Spirit of Christ. If you didn't have Peter to go to and understand that that was Jesus speaking, you would literally think that it was Isaiah that was going to resurrect with the dead men and they'd live with his body. You see what I'm saying? So you got to take it from a spiritual aspect. The things that Hosea had to say was hid to a lot of people. A lot of the things that the scriptures said, people did not understand the way they were truly meant to be. They didn't have the spiritual understanding. And I'll show you in a little while, even the apostles, those that walked with Jesus Christ, didn't understand that right there. They didn't understand what those prophets were saying. That's going to be important to you in a little while. These prophets that were born holy from their mother's womb, in coordinates with these apostles not understanding what they said, is important. Please keep that on your mind. That will open up your eyes here in just a little bit. And I tell you, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. All right? I've showed you the prophecies. And that's just two of them. There's more than that. Moses, all the prophets from the very beginning on through, they all spoke about Jesus Christ and his resurrection. Not only him, but those that were to rise with him. Now these two places, these two prophets, they told us what was going to happen, but they didn't tell you who it was that was going to be doing it. Go to Matthew, the 27th chapter. Let me rephrase that. This is prophecy. I'm fixing to show you where it was fulfilled. We'll get to who it was here in a minute. Matthew, the 27th chapter, and we'll start at the 51st verse. This is those prophecies being fulfilled. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom. The earth did quake, the rocks rent, and the graves, that's with an S. The graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose. What did Isaiah say? Thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. Awake and sing ye that dwell in dust. Dwell in dust. That was slept, past tense, that the graves opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose and came out of the graves after his resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared unto many. Apostle Paul talked about, I believe it was, last of all, he was seen in me. They went in, they physically was viewed by the people. In there, I don't know if you noticed it or not, it said that he came out after his resurrection. After. Keep that in mind. That will be important for you also. Go to Acts, the 22nd chapter, or 26th chapter, the 22nd verse, and I'll show you why it said that it was after his resurrection. Acts 26 and 22. Having therefore obtained help of God, I continued unto this day, witnessing both to small and great, saying none other than the things, this is one of the disciples speaking, saying none other than those things which the prophets and Moses did say should come. If you go back to Luke, the 24th chapter and the 46th verse, go back to your first page. This is Luke 24 and 46. These are the words of Jesus. Jesus said unto them, these are the words which I spake unto you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled which were written in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms concerning me. Then opened he their understanding that they might understand the scriptures, and said unto them, thus it is written, and thus it behooved Christ to suffer and to rise from the dead the third day. That's what this man in Acts was talking about. He said, I continue unto this day witnessing both to the small and great, saying none other things than those which the prophets and Moses should say should come, that Christ should suffer, and that he should be the first that should rise from the dead. The reason it said that they came out after his resurrection, it wasn't 1,000 years down the road, because Hosea said after 2 days will he revive us. In the third day he will raise us up. What did the prophets say? Prophets said that he would rise in the third day. Well, if Jesus rose in the third day, after he come out of the ground, then the others had to come up with him. They came up together with my dead body, shall they arise. Yes, it was after. The reason it was after was because Jesus had to be the first fruits unto God. God had to raise Jesus up out of the ground, and then Jesus raised 144,000. God had to get Jesus up. He had to come up before anybody else could. Why? I am the resurrection. Without Jesus, there is no resurrection. So Jesus had to resurrect before anybody else could come up and as a resurrection. We'll show you what a resurrection is here in a minute. That Christ should suffer, this is the 23rd verse, that Christ should suffer and that he should be the first that should rise from the dead and shew light unto the people and to the Gentiles. That's why they had to come out after his grave. Let's go to Acts 4 and 2. Being grieved that they taught the people and preached through Jesus the resurrection from the dead. I'm going to read this. He had to rise first before they could rise because the prophets had already foretold them. This wasn't 1,000 years after because it said, with my dead body shall they arise. Now, Matthew didn't tell you who these people were. He just told you that they got up. The graves were opened. And many bodies of the saints which slept arose. I'll ask you a question. What's going to raise at the last day? Both just and unjust. In Matthew, the 27th chapter, only the saints got up. So if these people that got up with Jesus Christ were all saints, they couldn't have been in the last and general resurrection because both just and unjust are going to get up. In the first resurrection, only saints got up out of the grave. Let's see who they were. Revelations, the 14th chapter, or the 7th chapter, and the 3rd verse. John the Revelator, God showed him things in the Spirit. God told him to go into the Isle of Patmos and I will show you the things that I show. I will reveal to you, you speak the things that I show, the things that have been and are to come. So John was showing this in Revelations, this resurrection. In Revelations, the 7th chapter and 3rd verse, it says, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their forehead. That's important to understand what that seal is. The only way you're going to know who he's talking about is to know what the seal is. So remember that. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of the tribe of the children of Israel. Jacob had 12 sons, 12 different tribes. And you can find them recorded in the 14th chapter, I believe it is, either the 7th or 14th chapter. There was 12,000 out of each tribe, made 144,000. All right? They all were sealed. For us to understand who it was that he was talking about, I want you to go to Revelations 14, verses 1 through 5. He said that they were all of the tribe of the children of Israel. Not a Gentile in the bunch. Not one. These people that he's talking about here that had this seal in their head, they were all Jews. Every one of them were all Jews. Revelations 14 and 1. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion. And we know who the lamb is. Jesus Christ. I looked, and lo, a lamb. Now remember, John the Revelator is telling us at this point in our life what had already happened. But he was revealing this resurrection by revelation from God. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their forehead. So there's the seal that he was talking about in Revelation 7. They had the name of God written in their forehead. Now, there again, this is not literal. These people didn't walk around with a tattoo on their head, all right? You got to look at it spiritually. They had the name of God written in their forehead. Why is that important? He talked about who they were, that they were the children of Israel. Now we're going to show you what they done. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of the tribe of Israel. The second verse, it says 1 there, but it's supposed to be 2. And I heard a voice out of heaven saying, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder, and I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps, and they sung as it were a new song. What did Isaiah say that they were going to do? Arise, thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in dust. They were dead, they had died. God, through Jesus Christ, resurrected them. When they resurrected, they sang. So you can see this here in Revelations, the 4th chapter, is talking about the same group of people that Isaiah talked about when Jesus said, these men would resurrect with me. Does that make sense to you? You've got to know and understand that these people are the very ones that Isaiah and Hosea was talking about. It was the 144,000. I'll show you why that's so important here in just a little bit. And they sung as it were a new song before the throne. Awake and sing. We didn't get to that. Let's go to the on down. And before the 4 beasts and the elders, and no man can learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. Were, past tense, were redeemed from the earth. We are redeemed today, but we're redeemed on earth. These people were redeemed from among men. They were redeemed from earth. They had to be resurrected. They had to leave. And I'll show you that here in just a little bit. They were redeemed from earth. And you go back to Uncle Jesse used to say this on the program, and it's always kind of funny to me. He said, if your preacher telling you he's going to be in the first resurrection, ask him to sing you a verse of that song. Because he ought to know it. The Bible said they'd be able to sing when they raise out of the ground. They're going to have it. They ought to know the song. They sung as it were a new song. No man can learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which were not defiled with women. This is the criteria of these people, all right? This is the type of person they were. We know that none of us can fall in this category. I know I sure can't. If that's what it takes to be saved, I'm done. And the rest of us guys are too, ain't you? These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb, whithersoever he goeth. I'll ask you today, where did Jesus Christ go? He went to heaven to sit down at the right hand of the throne of God. Well, who went with him? Evidently, these men. Evidently, these men. They followed the Lamb, whithersoever he goeth. If Jesus went to heaven, they went to heaven. There's prophecy of that in Daniel's writing in a vision. Daniel 2:44, I believe it is. He said he saw one like the Son of Man come before the Ancient of Days with the clouds of heaven. They brought him there. Those clouds were, as we'll get to in a little bit, the 144,000. All right? Which were redeemed from the earth, from among men, being the first fruits to God and to the Lamb. Now, you know that can't be us. Because who is the first fruits to God? It sure wasn't the Gentile race. No, they had to be Jews. That was God's elect. That was his first fruits. So these people that resurrected with Jesus Christ, the 144,000, it shows you who they were. Those people, bear with me just a second, were the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile. But that takes all of us out of the picture right there, don't it? In their mouth was found no guile. These people were born holy from their mother's womb. If you go to Luke, the 1st chapter and the 15th verse, this will explain what he's talking about there. He said, this is speaking of John, for he shall be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither strong drink, wine nor strong drink, and he shall be filled with the Holy Ghost even from his mother's womb. Before Jesus Christ came and before he resurrected, if God had anybody here that was justified, sanctified, pure, anybody, they had to be born that way. That's what he told Jeremiah. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Before I sanctified thee. He sanctified him. He made him one. If God had anybody here before the days of Christ that were holy, they had to be born that way. John was born that way. And of course, Jesus was. Let's go down to, see what verse this is. Where it says, for they are without fault before the throne of God. These people were without fault before the throne of God. Well, you know, that's not us. We've all sinned and come short of the glory of God. So who are these people? They're the 12 tribes of the children of Jacob. It can't be anybody in the future. A lot of people would have you to believe that it is, and they'll read in Revelations, the 20th chapter, where it talks about blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. And I'll go there here in a little while and show you what that part is. But a lot of people would have you to believe that people want to be in the first resurrection, want to have part in that. They'll misunderstand that there's going to be 1,000 years millennium reign. These people were already redeemed from the earth. They were already redeemed from the earth. If there's going to be 1,000 years millennium reign, they're going to have to start digging to get them out of the grave before that happens. And I'll show you that in a minute. Jeremiah 1 and 4. I've already quoted this, but I'll read it to you again, the whole thing. Jeremiah 1 and 4. Then the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, behold, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a nation, a prophet unto the nations. You can see that God had holy people ordained before Jesus Christ's blood from their mother's womb. How are we sanctified? Go to Hebrews, the 13th chapter and the 12th verse, and you'll see how we are sanctified. Those prophets were sanctified by God before they were ever born. But we are sanctified by the blood of Jesus Christ. Wherefore Jesus also, that he might sanctify the people with his own blood, suffered without the gate. So we are sanctified by the blood of Jesus Christ. These men follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. Down to Revelations, the 14th chapter, and the fourth verse. This is something I want to get to you. I want you to see this. These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. They are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. Where did Jesus Christ go? He went to heaven, and he's sitting at the right hand of the Father. They followed him there. I want you to go to Jude, the 14th chapter, or 14th verse, and that and Acts 1 and 9. And I want to compare these. In Jude's writing, it talked about Jesus Christ coming back. And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s, with an S on it, 10,000s of his saints. The Lord is going to come with 10,000s of his saints. Now let's go to Acts, the first chapter and the 9th verse. When Jesus Christ was ready to leave this world, he had told his disciples, he said, you go back to Jerusalem and you tarry there in the city of Jerusalem until you be endued with power from on high. Right? That's what he told them to do. Well, as he was going there, he said these things to them, said that the Holy Ghost would come after he departs. And in Acts, first chapter and the 9th verse, and when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. Now, when the Bible speaks of clouds, it's not always talking about natural clouds. All right? These clouds were people. That cloud that took that one that looked like the Son of Man up in before the Ancient of Days, that was a group of people. How did Jude say Jesus was coming back? With 10,000s of his saints. What did it say received him out of their sight? A cloud. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven, he went up, and two men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, you men of Galilee, why stand you gazing up into the heaven? This same Jesus which was taken up from you into heaven shall so come in like manner as you have seen him go into heaven. Well, how did they see him go? A cloud received him out of their sight. How did Enoch say he was coming back? 10,000s of his saints. I told you all a while ago I was trying not to get in too big a hurry. Brother Lonnie B is actually translating for us back here. So, a lot of these things you may have heard, but not everybody has, okay? So I want you to understand everything as best as I can. These people were born holy. These people, Jesus Christ is going to come back with 10,000s of his saints. So he went away with 10,000s of his saints. If he said there in Acts, this same Jesus as you have seen taken up from you shall so come in like manner, shall come in like manner. Well, if he's coming in like manner, the Bible said that he would come as he went away. How's he coming back? With 10,000s of his saints, 144,000. What was it that rose? The saints, which slept, past tense, arose. So you can see who it was that actually went with Jesus. This is Romans, the 8th chapter, and this I believe will be very enlightening to you and very inspiring, I believe. It was to me. When I read this, it really opened my eyes, because not that I ever doubted, just some things I needed some clarifications on. And this is beautiful. I think you'll really like this. Predestination. The people that were born here that were holy before Jesus Christ's day, before he shed his blood for us to be holy. If God had anybody here holy, they had to be born holy from their mother's womb, okay? I want you to read Romans, the 8th chapter, 28th through the 29th verse. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Listen to this verse very carefully. For whom he did foreknow. All right, let's go back to Jeremiah just a second, where he told him, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Okay, that's the foreknowledge. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. That's why Jesus had to rise first. He was the firstborn among many brethren. See, Jesus didn't rise by himself. There was people rose with him. That he might be the firstborn among many brethren. He wasn't alone. He was born from the dead, as you will find in the next place. That is what he meant when he said firstborn. Colossians, the 1st chapter, and we're coming back to Romans, so don't leave that. Colossians, the 1st chapter, and the 18th verse. And he, speaking of Jesus, is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning and the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence. Jesus was the firstborn from those that were dead. Now, who was it that was dead there that rose? Back to Romans 8. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate. He had them here holy, and he predestinated them to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. God had these people put here for that reason, so that he could be the firstborn among many brethren. God had them here for that reason, to resurrect. And there's a bigger circle here that you'll see here in a minute, and why that all is so important. To be conformed to the image of the Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate. Now, if you think that you're predestinated to go to heaven or to hell, you need to take a look. The ones that God predestinated went to heaven. They were glorified. I'm going to show you what glorified is here in a minute, and I think you're going to really like it. It's going to open up what the apostles couldn't see. It's going to open up why a lot of people don't understand it today. They look at everything natural, all right? Spiritually written, it's got to be spiritually discerned. The ones he predestinate, them he called. The ones who he called, he also justified. Now, let's stop right there just a second. The Bible said many are called, but few are chosen. Well, if the ones that God predestinated, that group of people, when he called them, he justified them. There was none of the many that didn't make it. They all was predestinated into that. Okay? Whom he called, he also justified. And whom he justified, them he also glorified. I don't have these notes. And if you'll take a pencil on a piece of paper and write these verses down, I think you're going to really like this. I want to show you what it means to be glorified. All right? John's writing the 17th chapter, and we'll start at the 4th verse. Jesus said, I have glorified thee on the earth. Now, Jesus didn't resurrect God. He was telling him, in other words, I've lifted you up. I've let people know just how great you are. All right? That's one form of glorifying somebody, of glorify, that word. But we got to understand what he was talking about when he said the people that were called, he justified, and the ones he justified, he glorified. There's something else besides just saying how great they are. Jesus said, I have glorified thee on the earth. I have finished the work which thou gavest me to do. Now go back up to the 1st verse. These are the words which Jesus spake, and lifted up his eyes to heaven, and said, Father, the hour is come. Glorify thy Son, that thy Son also may glorify thee. And now, O Father, glorify thou me with thine own self. Glorify thou me with thine own self. With the glory which I had with thee before the world was. Where was that at? It was in heaven. That's what he meant by being glorified. Glorified the 144,000, for them to be glorified, they had to be redeemed from the earth. They couldn't still be here. Those men that foretold this, a lot of it was not recognized and or seen, even by the disciples, the apostles of Jesus Christ. Mark the 9th chapter, the 31st verse. I'm going to have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 verses here that you're going to have to look like you're reading for Uncle Lester, because they're going to all come in together. And I wish I'd have put this on the paper for you so you wouldn't have to do this. But I'll have them to pull them on the board so you can read it. This is Mark, the 9th chapter, and the 31st verse. Bear with me just a second. Are y'all enjoying this? Great. Mark 9 and 31. You see, Jesus Christ here he was telling them what the apostles or what the prophets had said was going to happen. All through the old Bible, it talks about different things of Jesus' suffering. It all leads to Jesus Christ and all about his suffering, okay, and his glory, his resurrection. Mark 9 and 31, reading down. For he taught his disciples and said unto them, the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of men, and they shall kill him. And after that he is killed, he shall rise the 3rd day. He shall rise the 3rd day. You Bible scholars, I want you to tell me, how many places in the old Bible does it say the 3rd day in reference to Jesus Christ's resurrection? 1. Hosea 6:2. After 2 days will he revive us. In the 3rd day he will raise us up. You're going to like this, all right? One place Jesus' disciples knew the scriptures. They knew the scriptures. One place it says, after 2 days will he revive us. In the 3rd day he will raise us up. They didn't understand it. Why? Just like the man that told me that was natural kings. It's spiritually written. God knew, look at it, in this day and time that people wouldn't understand it. So he let it be the same way with his disciples so that he could open their eyes later on and we could understand that we can't just read it like a book. Can't just read it like a book. It's got to be spiritually discerned. All right. Let me read that again. 31st. And he taught his disciples and said unto them, the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of men, and they shall kill him. And after that he is killed, he shall rise a third day. 32nd verse. But they understood not that saying and were afraid to ask him. The disciples. Hold that. Luke, the 18th chapter. And 31st verse. And I'm going to show you that it's talking about in reference to what the prophets and Moses and them had said. This is Luke 18 and 31. Then he took unto him the 12, speaking of the disciples, and said unto them. Now this shows you what he was talking about in Mark. Behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and all the things that are written by the prophets concerning the Son of Man shall be accomplished. For he shall be delivered unto the Gentiles, and shall be mocked and spitefully entreated and spat upon, and they shall scourge him and put him to death, and the third day he shall rise again. So everything that those prophets had been talking about in Jesus Christ's resurrection, thy dead men shall live, Hosea 6 and 2, they didn't understand. That's what he just got through saying. And the 34th verse, and they understood none of these things, and they said, and here's the reason, and this saying was hid from them. And they knew, let me read that right, neither knew they the things which were spoken. They didn't understand what Jesus was talking about. Did they know the scriptures? Absolutely. When Jesus Christ come in there where the money changers was at and he kicked over the table, y'all remember that? Where he came in and they were selling the doves and the different things, and Jesus got upset and he kicked over the money changers' table. The Bible said that the disciples remembered what David had said. The zeal of my Father's house hath eaten me up. They knew the scriptures. But this was hidden from them. And there's a reason. This was hidden from them. I'm bringing all that together so you can see what it means to be redeemed. John, the 2nd chapter, and the 13th verse, or to be glorified is what I meant to say. John, the 2nd chapter, and the 13th verse. And the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem and found, well, that's you don't have to read that. I just told you what that was. Go to Luke 24 and 44. That's where Jesus had kicked over the money changers' table, and they knew the scriptures. Luke 24 and verse 44. This is after Jesus Christ's resurrection. Now I want you to stay with me, okay? And he said unto them, these are the words which I spake unto you. This is Luke 24 and 44. While I was yet with you, all things must be fulfilled which were written in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms concerning me. Listen to this. Then opened he their understanding that they might understand the scriptures. It wasn't till after Jesus resurrected that they even knew what that meant. All the things that they had talked about in Jesus' resurrection, it was hid from them. It was hid from them that they wouldn't understand it. But Jesus Christ opened their eyes after his resurrection. Why is that important? Go to John 2 and 18, I believe it is. I think you're going to like this. John 2 and 18. Then answered the Jews and said unto him, what sign shewest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest these things? Talking about kicking over the money chambers table. And Jesus answered and said unto him, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. So we know he's talking about the resurrection, right? All right. Then said the Jews, 46 years was this temple in building, and wilt thou rear it up in 3 days? But he spake of the temple of his body. When therefore he was risen from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said unto them, and they believed the scriptures and the words which Jesus Christ said. Now get me here. When Jesus, therefore, was raised from the dead, when he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered. I just showed you in the 24th chapter of Luke where Jesus said the things that the Moses and the law and all had said about him would come. He opened their eyes and they understood. So they didn't understand until after his resurrection. Now, this right here shows you that 22nd verse, when therefore he was risen from the dead. Go to John, the 12th chapter and the 16th verse. Remember, it said, when therefore he was risen from the dead, keep that in your mind, they remembered the scriptures. These things understood not his disciples at first. Let's go above there. Let's read the 12th verse. Actually, let me tell you what it is so you know that he's talking about the resurrection. When Jesus Christ had came in and Martha or Mary had anointed his feet and dried them, they had told Mary, said, why did you do this? We should have sold that oil. Jesus says, she hath done this against the day of my burying has she kept this. So he was showing that particular time, what he's talking about, was about the resurrection. That's what they needed to understand, all right? The 16th verse, it went on down, or 12th verse. On the next day, much people that were come to the feast, when they heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem, they took branches of palm trees and went forth to meet him and cried, Hosanna, blessed is the King of Israel that cometh in the name of the Lord. And Jesus, when he had found a young ass, sat thereon as it is written, Fear not, daughter of Zion, behold, the King cometh, sitting on the ass's coat. These things understood not the disciples at first. What did we say a while ago? After his resurrection, they understood it. He called it raised from the dead. John 2 and 22, when therefore he was risen from the dead, his disciples remembered. What did he say here? These things understood not the disciples at first, but when Jesus was glorified. When Jesus was glorified, then remembered they the things which were written of him and the things that was done. So you can see by that being glorified meant to be resurrected. Why is that so important? Whom he did foreknow, them he also did predestinate. The ones he predestinated, he called. The ones he called, he justified. The ones he justified, he glorified. Does that not bring it together? What does it mean to be glorified? It means to be resurrected. What did John say? After he was raised from the dead, then they knew. After he was glorified, then they knew. When Jesus was glorified, those people that were predestinated, they were glorified. Glorified meant to be raised from the dead. So, what did it say? Them he glorified. It's not Jesus by himself. So somebody raised with Jesus than just Jesus. Who was it? The ones who had no fault. The ones that were born holy from their mother's womb. Is that plain to you? So Jesus didn't resurrect by himself. The resurrection, and there's a whole lot more on this. Man, I've got a lot more. Anybody know what time it is? 8:17. Wow. I'm gonna stop right here. I tell you what, before I do, I'm gonna read one more thing. I want to show you what it takes to be a resurrection. Let's read 1 Corinthians 15, 42 through 44. And this will tell you what it takes to constitute a resurrection. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body, there is a spiritual body. That's what it takes to be a resurrection. This body that we bury is not the body that will raise. The body we bury is a terrestrial body. It's one that will decay. The body that will raise is a celestial body. It's one that'll never decay. That's the body that those men rose with. They were glorified. Jesus Christ was glorified. He went back to his Father. Can you see that he wasn't alone? Can you see who it was that went with him? There's a whole lot more on this that we can bring up and actually tie into the last and general resurrection, but we'd be here till midnight probably. And I don't want to keep you that long because I want you to come back next Wednesday night. Not sure if we'll take this up again next Wednesday night. Really, the majority of it does kind of show, and you can read through this and get some ideas of where I was going with this. This all come from Brother Jesse's Radio Revival Hour for the most part. If you did not get a copy of this tonight, please let me, Brother Richard, know. And if you want a copy and or more copies, I know we got some brothers that have asked to take some home to their families. So, Brother Richard, we need to make some more of these for sure. But we'll get them to you. I hope this has been a blessing to you. I hope you're excited about what we are doing. I've been on pins and needles all day long waiting to get here. I hope that has proved a blessing to you.
I know you've enjoyed this edition of Dalton Services on YouTube. From the pastors and members here in Dalton, we invite you to drop by at any of our scheduled services. Sunday morning at 10:30, Sunday evening at 6 p.m., and Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. for great gospel singing and anointed gospel preaching. And remember, it's not about us. It's all about him. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.